Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is box. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear this verb used is to mean to fight an opponent using one's fists, right? So hand closed, or to compete in the sport of boxing. So, as we look at this definition, you might be realizing I've picked this verb again because of its connection to the Olympics. The Olympics officially begin tomorrow, and this is a popular Olympic sport. And again, if you're following the this international event, then you might hear this verb used. A second, more everyday usage for this verb is simply to put something into a box or to provide a box for something. A third way you might hear this verb used is to mean to create a border or an area that is filled in. Sometimes as we take notes on things, right, we might draw this shape, right? And we'd call that action boxing. Maybe it's a phrase, an important reminder, something of that nature. You should know that box is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we need to do is add ing to form boxing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. The base verb, box, ends with the letter X, which always makes two consonant sounds together. In this case, the consonant sound is a K plus an S. So the ending sound for our base verb here is an S, box, box. Because of this, our our ed ending, is going to make a T sound. Boxed, boxed. Now, there are a couple phrasal verbs that you might hear with this verb. The first is box in. This generally means to physically block and prevent someone or something from moving from a place. Let's take a look at an example. Your car is boxing mine in. Can you move it so I can leave? Right? So this particular phrasal verb, box in, you might hear it used a lot with cars, driveways, parking lots, etc. And so that idea of one car preventing another car from moving. I'll also note that sometimes this phrasal verb, box in, isn't always something that you can see. Right, so my definition here is all about physically blocking, but sometimes it gets used to mean more like a position, right? Once I've said this, I can't turn around and say something else or do something else that's inconsistent with that first thing. So sometimes you might see this phrasal verb used in connection to politics and government. So if a particular side, a particular party, I should say, has taken a side on one issue, it might affect their ability to take a different position on another issue or at something at a later point in time. A second way we might use a box with a phrasal verb is with box out. And this particular phrasal verb is always used in connection to sports. And so here the meaning is one person positioning or maneuvering, which kind of means moving around. So positioning oneself between an opposing player and a goal. So you'll hear box out used quite often in basketball. So after someone has taken a shot, the team that had been on defense is trying to position themselves in front of the opposing team in hopes that they can get the rebound if the shot has been missed. You might also hear box out used in hockey, and again, you're trying to position yourself in front of the goal, maybe to prevent the other team from scoring. So an example of this, I have the imperative here. You might hear this command from a coach, box out the shooter, right? So Here it's meaning position yourself in front so that the shooter here probably doesn't get the rebound in case they've missed their shot. The next phrasal verb you might hear is box up. This just means to pack objects into a box. An example of this: they're boxing up her winter clothes because they're moving to Hawaii. So here, this idea, I'm not going to need heavy sweaters, coats, etc., my winter clothes, because I'm moving to a place that's very warm. So we're going to put all of these items into a box, or maybe mini boxes. Let's continue our verb tense practice by using our verb of the day in the simple past tense and the present perfect. We'll start with the simple past. Remember, we're using this verb tense to note an action that has been completed at some known time. And that time might be stated in the sentence, or it might be implied as part of a conversation or a passage. The nice thing about the affirmative in the simple past tense is that our form is going to be the same no matter what our subject is. So here, because box is a regular verb, we're going to use that ed ending. You can see that in the example sentence. The company boxed the warnings on their labels. So that would be that idea of putting a border around something, maybe so it jumps out, it calls attention. Now, if you want to make a negative simple past tense sentence, you should use did not and then the base verb. So we're not using that ed ending with the negative. An example of that: she didn't box out on the last play. So here, again, maybe we're talking about basketball or hockey, but it's going back to that idea of positioning yourself in front of another player. If you want to make a yes or no question in the simple past tense, start with did, then have your subject, and then the base verb. So again, no ed ending in our yes or no question. Did you box me in? Right? So someone might be asking, did you park your car so I can't move my car? Now let's take a look at the present perfect. We use this verb tense to talk about an action that started in the past and continues into the present, but we might also use it to talk about an action that was completed at some unknown time in the past. And that time, whether it happened a week ago, a year ago, or 10 years ago, it might not just matter. So to make the present perfect, we're going to use either have or has. This is going to depend on our subject. So if our subject is I, you, we, or they, use have. But if your subject is he, she, or it, use has. And because we have a regular verb, we're using our past tense form. It's the same as the participle. So those are the two parts we need to make this verb tense. An example sentence: they have boxed each other several times before. This sentence is likely referring back to that first definition of being engaged in the sport of boxing. So two people we're likely referencing here have competed in a boxing match together at some point in the past. If you want to make a negative present perfect sentence, you need to insert not after the have or has, and then continue to use the participle form. He hasn't boxed in several years. If you want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect, start with have or has, then you'll have your subject, and then the participle form of the verb. Have you boxed up the leftovers? Right? So this might be a question that you asked to a server in a restaurant because you enjoyed your meal, but there was too much to eat, and you want to make sure you can take it home with you. Now let's spend just a couple minutes looking at some words that are related to our verb. The first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So exact same spelling, exact same pronunciation. The noun box can have a number of different meanings. One would be a container that has a flat base and sides. Generally, it's square or rectangular, and many times it has a lid. So, an example of that, put those two boxes in the attic, right? So, these boxes could be made out of cardboard, plastic, or really just about any kind of material. A second way to use the noun box is to refer to the contents, so what's inside the container. An example of that, they ate the entire box of cereal. Okay? So what this sentence means is they ate everything that was inside the box. They did not eat the actual container. So those first two definitions of the noun, they might seem very close, and they are, but there is a slight difference that could help your communication. A third way to use the noun box is to refer to an area that's to be filled in or that has been set off by some border. So you might hear the noun used in this way if you're taking a computer class or receiving some instruction from another person. Click on the box in the bottom corner, right? So they're telling you to look for some shape that has a border or maybe it's filled in, and that's sort of the next step. I'm going to give you a second example sentence with that because you will hear box as a noun used in a few different sports. You might hear it in soccer, in baseball, and softball. And my example sentence here, did he foul the player in the box? That might be a question fans are asking as they watch a particular game. But if you think about the penalty box or that area near the goal, right, there's an outline, right? So that's the area that is set off by a border. I've got one more word for us to look at today. It's also a noun. It's boxer, right? So I hope you see that suffix er and are thinking, oh, that's a person who. And you're absolutely right. That's one way to use this noun, a person who takes part in the sport of boxing. So, an example of that word in a sentence, there are 9 boxers representing the US at the Olympics. And I've included a picture here just in case maybe this is a new sport for you or you're not sure what it looks like. The woman in this picture has boxing gloves on. This is very typical for the sport. And you can kind of imagine, right, that first definition, you're making fists. It sort of involves punching. Or one of our earlier verbs from this week, taking a swing at someone. There is a second way to use the noun boxer, and it has a completely different meaning. It refers to a breed or a type of dog. I have an example sentence, their new dog is a boxer. And I have to tell you, I am not an expert when it comes to animals, but I've tried to find a picture I'm fairly confident represents or looks like a boxer. And you can see that in the bottom corner of the screen. Again, many different types or breeds of dogs, and this is just the name that represents one of them. Perhaps you've seen this. Maybe you have a boxer, or perhaps a friend or family member has or likes this breed of dog. I think they're known to be pretty energetic and enthusiastic, high energy animals. So, thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.